I would love to just go ahead and move us into a community question. So let's go ahead and do that. We have a community question. Krista, will you ask it for us today?
For sure. Today's community question is, how does nature impact what we do here at Orange Nebula?
Okay, so can we define what we mean by nature? We had a pre-discussion about this. So for us, I would like to say that nature means us, being outside, actually in nature. We're talking about forests. We're talking about mountains. We're talking about oceans. We're talking about walks. We're talking about hikes. We're talking about camping. Am I wrong?
I mean, the natural world.
Yeah.
And engaging with it in some way.
Okay. So how can I start with you on this one?
For sure.
How
It's not about how I'm feeling on this couch.
Okay.
So.
Okay. How do you think nature informs what you do at Orange Nebula?
I love to go out into nature and just let the forms that I see inspire what I am drawing and creating, rather than just trying to create merely from my head. It's like I'm responding to the forms that I'm seeing. For example, I'll see in some tree bark a creature, and then I'm just transcribing that creature. Or we all went, I think after our Kickstarter, we went to this place where you drink a drink out of coconuts, and at the bottom of the coconut, you see all of these amazing forms just in the texture of how the coconut is formed. And I just love that, where I feel like I'm not just enforcing, but I'm responding to what I'm seeing.
Why does it seem like to me that's like right now with AI, a writer is like, I don't want to start from nothing. And so we're like, hey, AI, give me an outline. And from an outline, we can move really quickly. So is nature like AI for art?
I mean, I understand what you're getting at, that like, here's a prompt for you.
Yes.
I think that right now the difference in that would be that AI is, being built on previously had human ideas, and nature is not beholden to that.
There's so much more depth.
Yes. How about you? What's your experience with nature and work?
Well, I'm primarily a graphic designer by trade, and so I've always been fascinated by patterns. And in nature, there's a ton of geometry and forms and shapes and patterns that kind of inform visual language, and so that's kind of a starting point for me. I usually watch those, documentaries about nature, and I sometimes the biological world is just rich with behavioral things, which I think are interesting to think about, but also just the visual language that happens in the world when you go from region to region, country to country, and biome to biome. There's a lot that you can inspire yourself with, and then you get to make those connections however you want to. And so primarily from a design perspective, yeah.
Is there a particular biome or region that is more like, that is the best fruit for graphic design inspiration?
No, I don't see it that way. The natural world goes beyond that too. It goes into space, and sacred geometry. I think there's an aspect of outer space and the almost the chaos of the cosmos and galaxies and stuff. I think that maybe I'm going a little bit too far.
I loved it. I was finally getting into it. I was finally getting into it, Marc. It's not too far.
I know.
Always go too far.
The chaos of the cosmos. That was it for me.
Well, I think Krista was getting at it. There's a point at which you're being informed, but there's also something forming. And I think that's where the magic is how we interpret that information. And that's what makes each of us unique. What I see in the stars is different than what Krista sees in the stars. And they're both terrifyingly beautiful, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, from a design perspective, I think that's great. It also informs game design. It ties to human behavior. And what do you feel when you see that thing? Or what does that say to you when you look and, every snowflake is different. There's a magnificence to the way that the structures are. And I don't know, there's a part of me that wants to do world building based on that, but there's always this urge to change what you see, and I don't know if I would even say build on it or build something new, but you're kind of inspired by this kind of foundational piece of information for what is, when you're trying to make something that hasn't been.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
No, that is.
Tom, how does nature play into any of the work that you do at Orange Nebula?
I think for me, you know, like nature plays into everything that I do because I really perceive myself as being part of nature. You know, I can't just self-actualize and exist without nature. I
Right.
need the air, I need the soil, I need the water. Like that's all in me every minute right now, part of me. And I feel like when I go to nature, there's a piece of me waiting for me there that I don't have access to when I'm not there. And so it's sort of like when I go to nature, I get to connect with something in myself and in the world and with my larger, broader connection with existence in a way that I don't when I'm in a building and connected to all this other stuff like screens and my mind and the virtual reality that happens in my head all the time of the past and the future. But when I go out into nature, all of that connection falls away and I have this other connection that really like expands my awareness, which then feeds into both, you know, the creative parts of my job, but then also, you know, anything involving leadership or teams, you know, the team or decision making. Like the me that I bring to the things that I do at work is so much more full when I'm spending time engaged with this thing that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
And so it's just sort of broadly essential to me to be a full person, to spend time in nature.
I love that almost recognition of self that you can have when you're out in nature. I hadn't thought of it that way, but like there's an element of surprise that happens to me when I'm witnessing things in nature that doesn't happen when I'm sitting on my computer. You know, when I'm scrolling Instagram, what I see, I expect to see, you know? But somehow when I'm walking down the street and I see the moon during the day, if anybody's ever seen me, I will gasp every time. I'm just shocked.
There's
It's
that
there
lady
again.
surprised by the moon again.
And there's some sort of like recognition, okay? I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when I see the moon or when I see a heron in the river where I don't expect to see it, there's this awe that cannot be replicated in many other places except like the eyes of people that I love. You know what I mean? And it just opens me and fills me, and that is like magic for creativity for me anyway. If I'm not doing that, then I don't have that spark that I need to be able to actually create.
That all resonates with me so much, and I think it's because, you know, the experience that I have, or the awareness that the way that I perceive that, at least, is that for me, you know, my sense of self in day-to-day life in a building, on screens, talking to people is very, you know, here's Tom in his little box. But when I'm looking into the eyes of someone I love, like there's a piece of me in them and a piece of them in me,
Yes.
and like my sense of self expands.
Oh,
and
yes.
the same thing happens when I step out into nature, where like there's an element to which I am in all this, and it is all in me, and like myself becomes this bigger thing, and then awareness and ideas sort of spill forth from that.
Nature is like life, man. It's really deep, bro.
It is.
No,
All
it
right.
is.
That's good.
He's
He's about to go. You're going on a mini log now. I shut him down.
Shut down. We'll never know.
It's okay. It's all right.
We'll never know how he was going to dump all over us.
There's a piece of it where I think the smaller you remember you are, the bigger you can create. So if your life is about you and you're in your routine and you're just huge in the frame of your own, you know, image there, I just feel like that's really limiting with what you can do and what you can contribute. But when you go out into nature and you feel small and the world feels vast, then I think your mind does open up and it contributes largely to things that are outside of you. And
I agree.
And that, to me, I think is important in the creative process. And for us to remember that we're small. The same thing happens when people get broken and they go through trauma and they heal and they realize that they can heal. And they start to realize, gosh, you know, I was thinking so small. And they start to think bigger and they start to challenge themselves more and they start to gain confidence. magic happens at that point too, and it's similar to me. Those two things.
As soon as you see one picture of the pale blue dot and those feelings that took up your entire existence for an entire day, all of a sudden you can take that deep breath and go like, oh, like I'm one of billions.
You can also scream there without bothering other people.
I do that a lot. Void screaming.
There's a lot of things you can do there without bothering other people, actually.
All right,
We'll just leave that
let's take a
mysterious.
break. We'll hike and void scream, okay? And we'll come back.
No, I think transformation is coming through the retort.
What's that?
I think transformation is coming through the retort.
What is it now? What is it transformed into?
Well, what was in there?
I don't know, Lacey. What was in the retort?
I'm imagining some sort of like purple sparkly liquid that when I dripped a tear inside of it, the fumes that came out the retort could heal Marc's broken heart.